sucks! That probably wasn't the best way to start. Okay. We're gonna be constructive about this. No, seriously, fuck Devil May Cry. I'm sorry. You don't understand my pain, okay? It's not even just that I don't like the games. It's not just that. No. This goes far beyond that. See, I'm pretty sure, and this is saying a lot coming from me, because, you know, I'm not actively, but I am involved with the Sonic fan base, you know, and they get a lot of shit. No. The worst motherfucking fan base I've ever had to deal with, at least one of the worst, has got to be the Devil May Cry fan base, because you can't say a word about these fucking games in the negative manner without some terrible, horrible thing being said to you, usually by multiple people, about how you're fucking stupid and you just don't get the brilliance of Devil May Cry. Because apparently there's something deeper than simply being a terrible game series. Okay, it's not terrible, sort of. It's not even just that the fans annoy me. It was one fan in particular, well, a few, but this one guy in particular that drove me over the edge with this. See, back when I was in high school, there was this fucking kid at my lunch table, and for all of my freshman year, swear to God, or was it sophomore? Don't even care anymore. I swear to you, every single sodding day, all I heard was Devil May Cry, Dante's awesome, Devil May Cry, Devil May fucking cry. And I wanted to kill him. And ever since then, I've had this seething, burning hatred for the game series. But let's take an honest look, as honest as I can be, and I'll try to explain in detail why I don't like this series, because I've gotten a lot of questions about it. A lot of people are like, why don't you like Devil May Cry? You like Bayonetta and God of War and Ninja Gaiden. You like every game that's like Devil May Cry, but you don't like Devil May Cry. Why? Because while all those games fall in the same genre, really, they're not like Devil May Cry at all. And that's a good thing for those games. I just wanted to clarify that.
Before I even start this review, I just want to make this abundantly clear. I did not play the original Devil May Cry back when it first came out. I didn't actually play it for several years after it first came out. In fact, going even further than that, I didn't play this game until after I'd already played the next two games. So, that taking into account, you have to remember, the first Devil May Cry really hasn't aged that well. So, I have to take into account what it was for back then, and that's a bit difficult for me to do, since I didn't play it back then. By the time I got around to playing this game, not only had I played its two sequels, but I'd already played other similar games, God of War and Ninja Gaiden. So, it already had some big shoes to fill for me. It didn't. It failed miserably, and I just don't like this game. I don't like the series. I don't like the fans. I don't like a lot about this thing. But I'm going to try to review this as constructively as possible and try to go over positives and negatives. Because there is a bit to like about Devil May Cry. I'm not saying the whole thing is shit.
Slow down, babe.
God, this fucking guy!
You know, that's really the first fucking thing that I need to talk about. This guy. Dante is the most insufferable character. Oh my fucking god, this guy. Okay, that was one of the first things that drove me crazy about this series. And everyone talked about, oh yeah, Dante's so fucking awesome. No, he's a douche. Like, he is literally the literal definition of douche. You go into Webster's dictionary, you look up the definition of douche, next to douche is written the name Dante. That's what it is. Like, up front, okay? I'm sorry, I can't stand this guy. You know, yeah, he has super cool half-demon powers, and he basically invulnerable, and, you know, can shoot guns, and do swords, and fight, you know, hordes of enemies on his own. But that's not an excuse for being a fucking asshole, alright, all the fucking time. He's not cool to me. He's not a respectable character. He's not someone I can relate to. He's annoying. He's a jerk. And he's obnoxious. Like, God, that was one of the first things. Like, already I have stuff to bitch about, but let's talk about positives. Alright, let's talk about positives. Okay. You know, for an older PS2 game, the game actually looks really freaking good. We have some really nice Gothic-style architecture. The art design is very dark, but appropriate for the game, and everything looks really good. Character models are decent, they haven't aged as well as the environments, but everything just fits, and I think the game looks really good. And the music, I gotta say, is fucking badass. Seriously. That's gonna be a running theme through Devil May Cry. You know, it's funny, I actually hear a lot of professional reviewers, the one thing they say bad about Devil May Cry, oh, I can't stand all that rock music, that metal's really obnoxious. I fucking love the music, okay? You can all kiss my ass. The music in Devil May Cry is frickin' amazing. So, there you go. Graphics and sound. Awesome. No complaints there. Then we come to the gameplay. You know, the first constant annoying thing with this game, with me, was the camera. It keeps fucking changing. It's annoying as shit. This isn't a survival horror game, although apparently Devil May Cry actually spawned off of a glitch that was found in Resident Evil, if you can believe that, and it sort of evolved into this. So the camera work may be coming from Resident Evil, but it doesn't really work well here. It barely worked in Resident Evil. Like, it just keeps changing in the most awkward way, and it's almost never facing in the way you want. It's really, really, really frustrating. In addition, the control is decent, I suppose, though that really hasn't aged well. In this day and age, the control just feels very clunky. You feel slow all the time, and for someone who's supposed to be really agile like Dante, that's not really a good thing. And then we come to the actual combat, which I really have to get into, because the combat is annoying as shit. There's a lot to like here, but the problem with the original Devil May Cry specifically, and a lot of the games, you know, that come after it, it just boils down to monotonous button mashing. It's annoying and not fun. You know, I hear there's supposed to be combos in games like this. I hear, oh, you know, oh yeah, Devil May Cry is all about doing combos and shit. No. See, that would imply that combos were actually possible to do. And, you know, you can do combos, but don't ask me how, because the problem with Devil May Cry specifically, in terms of the way it's designed, is that there's only one melee attack button. You have two main attack buttons. You have your melee attack with your sword, or whatever you happen to be using, and you have your guns. And that's it. Two motherfucking buttons. And it's not like you can chain those two into combos or anything. In terms of melee attacks, you have one button to make combos with. So combos are down to button timing and the way you're moving the analog stick. And I can't even tell you how frickin' awkward that is. Was it so wrong to incorporate a light and heavy attack? You know, other similar games, again, like God of War and Ninja Gaiden, those two are going to be coming up a lot. You know, granted, those two weren't out at this time, so I'm going to cut this game some slack, but I'm just saying, would it be so wrong to incorporate a light and heavy attack button? It's a very simple design, and it would work. It would allow you to chain combos. There's a lot to offer by simply adding a second attack button, but no. And that's not really the worst thing about the original Devil May Cry's combat. As far as I can tell, there's really no way to block in Devil May Cry unless you happen to be attacking at, like, the same time. That's how you block, is, you know, by attacking when they attack, as far as I can tell. But that's not really the problem. The problem is that there's no effective block button, and in terms of dodging, oh, let's talk about dodging, okay. For one, in order to do your pistol attacks, you know, in order to shoot, you have to hold down R1 to aim. I don't even know why, because square doesn't do anything normally, or X if you're on the 360 version, whatever, it doesn't matter. The shoot button doesn't actually do anything on its own, as far as I can tell, from what it just doesn't. You have to hold down R1 and then magically, oh, now it shoots. Why not just have it shoot without holding down the R1 button? But specifically, the R1 button allows you to roll, which would be great if the roll was reliable. But it's not, because it likes to pick and choose when it wants to let you roll, because what it'll do is that it turns the jump button into a roll button, but only some of the time. Again, depending on which way you happen to be pointing the analog stick. If you're pointing to the side, oh, you'll roll to the side. That's great. That's a good way to dodge. But if you're not doing that and you want to roll, say, forward away from somebody, Dante will just jump. And the jump is weird in this game. It's not really fluid. You feel heavy whenever you jump a Devil May Cry. I'm not sure why that is. There's almost a delay on it. So jumping really isn't an effective strategy to dodge at all. And this all conglomerates into really a very, very clunky combat system overall. And I am being a little hard on it, because, you know, there's one argument that a lot of Devil May Cry fans like to give me that I am willing to admit. Devil May Cry is kind of the first game of its kind. This is basically the 3D version of a beat-em-up, which we really don't get anymore, you know. But that's basically what Devil May Cry is. It's a 3D beat-em-up. The first successful one, in essence. It's sort of the first of its kind. So, there's gonna be things about it that probably will need to be ironed out. And you know, future, you know, installments, you'd think would fix it, but we'll talk about that later. But other games in the genre, like God of War and Ninja Gaiden, and even further Bayonetta, you know, would add things to allow for more fluid, fast-paced combat. While this game feels very clunky, that's more a sign of its age, and I can cut it a lot of slack simply because it was the first, and, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world, and there's more to it than just combat. You have to walk around and explore this place, and like I said, the environments look great, so there's actually fun in actually looking around. While the puzzles aren't exactly puzzles, they're more figure out what to push and touch and hit with your sword or whatever. They exist, and, you know, it sort of works in a way. But then we get to Devil May Cry 2.
Yeah, the thing about Devil May Cry 2 is that there was a period of my life where I did try to defend the game a bit, because it was the only Devil May Cry game that I had played back when it first was released, to any real extent. And at the time, I kinda liked it, but it's often considered one of the worst Devil May Cry games, well, at least the worst one of the original series, and it's also, the year it came out, it was considered the worst sequel of that year. One of the most disappointing games of the year, I think, by Game Informer, if memory serves. Even more so than Tomb Raider: The Angel of Darkness, which I'm pretty sure came out the same year, if my memory is correct right now, which is not true at all, by the way. Not even close. But looking back after playing all three games now, yeah, Devil May Cry 2 is definitely the worst.
Like I said, I played Devil May Cry 2 a lot when I was young, and I really remember liking it a lot, but nowadays, you know, it's really upsetting to play it now and realize that, you know, it's really not nearly as good as I thought it was. Not even close. It's pretty terrible overall. Like I don't like Devil May Cry in general, but man, like this fucking game. Okay, let me explain what the problem is. I will say that character models are a lot better in this game, but somehow the environments ended up way more bland this time around. I'm not sure what the hell they decided to do. Like, everything's brown. Seriously, I literally think every single piece of architecture in this game is fucking brown. No exaggeration. It gets dull and old, and I'm fucking sick of seeing it. Okay, enough already with the brown. It's boring! In addition, Dante is nothing like he was in the first game. I'm well aware that that sounds like a good thing, since I fucking hate him in the first game, but this is just bad writing, is what this is. If you have an established character, Dante in the first game was established as a fucking douchebag. Okay? Let's get that out there. In this game, he doesn't say a fucking word. I mean, he says words occasionally, but they aren't, you know, sarcastic lines of dialogue. They aren't, you know, douchey things. He doesn't really say much, like, ever, really. He only talks occasionally. He doesn't even say, like, the same fucking guy. That's not good writing at all. In fact, the story in general in this game is a lot weaker than the first game. I didn't really touch on that in the first game, you know, when it came to the story, but the story, like, existed in the first game, and it actually mattered, you know, it had relevance. Here, you know, I literally couldn't tell you what the hell happened in this game. I've played through this one multiple times. There's some guy named Arius, and he's evil, and there's a demon that Dante's dad Sparta fought or something, and really, the plot, it has no bearing on the game. Now, I must admit, there are a few things about the gameplay that were improved in this game, but they sort of resulted in other problems, but I'll get to those later. For one, there's actually a proper dodge button, which is fucking amazing, by the way. by hitting the roll button, you can actually avoid attacks, and you don't need to be holding R1 to do anything anymore, really. Targeting seems to happen automatically. You can shoot without holding down R1, like I said. And you can roll without, pressing anything else. You just roll in any direction, and it works really well. It makes combat more fluid. The problem is that this whole thing degenerated into way, way more of a button masher than ever before. Which is impressive, because the first game had a lot of button mashing. But this time, oh my god, the button mashing. There's no... The thing about the first game is that it was actually kind of hard. And the reason why lacking a dodge button was such a problem was because you actually had to dodge. You had to avoid attacks. You couldn't just mash on the button all day. You had to move. Devil May Cry 2, you having to dodge, that doesn't exist. With the sole exception of a few boss fights, you don't really need to avoid attacks that often. If you just mash the melee attack button, you're probably going to win. Without much of a problem. In fact, I would almost say you're probably going to win without getting hit. You don't have to worry about doing combos. You don't have to worry about anything else. The game plays itself. No joke. When I recorded this footage, I was actually a little bit tired. I just woken up. I almost fell asleep while I was playing this game. I am not making that up. That is not even a joke. I'm not trying to be funny. I am being dead fucking serious. This game nearly put me to fucking sleep. Because you do the same thing over and over and over again. Run forward, enemies show up, mash the attack button. Run forward, enemies show up, mash the fucking attack button. And don't even get me started on the parts where you actually have to look around and find shit. Somehow the puzzles in this game, which again, barely qualify as puzzles, are even more dull than the first game, and Jesus Christ, just... Oh my god. For all the fixes to the combat, you'd think they might have made the game, I don't know, actually, somewhat of a challenge to give me a reason to use the super awesome dodge button, which really made the game a lot better, but no. They still didn't add a secondary attack button, which, would have been really nice, that actually would let me do combos, but it really doesn't matter, because you don't need it. This is the one game where you just don't need it. You just mash the same button, and you win. But the best thing about this game, you're gonna love this, is that somehow, and I still don't know how, the camera in this game is worse than in the first games. If you can fucking believe that. I'm fighting a boss right now. I wouldn't know, without the boss health gauge at the bottom, because you can't see the fucking boss. This is a consistent problem. The camera is never, ever pointed in the direction you want it to be. And Jesus Christ, I can't even tell you how fucking often I can't see what I'm fighting. I mean, it's not really a big deal, because the best part about this particular boss fight is that I fought most of it by standing still and mashing the shoot button. And I won. Because that's how stupid this game's combat is. But, but just the fact that I know that if this game actually was a challenge, I wouldn't be able to play it adequately because the camera's pointed in the wrong direction, that annoys me. I'm just saying. The worst part about it is that there's a lot of nice things about the game, and I see how it could have been really good. But there's just no challenge here, and there's no fun. It's boring. It's not enjoyable. At least in the first game, I felt like I was doing stuff. Things, happened, and I felt gratified whenever, I beat a boss, or, I beat a wave of enemies, because I actually had to try. Here, I don't have to try. Ever. Let's move on. Devil May Cry 3. Oh my god, this is the fucking one. This is the one that I hear all about. Oh, this is the best Devil May Cry game ever. You gotta love this game. No. Fuck this game. Fuck the whole series. Sorry, can't get over that. Anyway, Devil May Cry 3. Let's talk about this. Okay. First things first, get this out of the way. Dante's back to being a fucking douchebag, and he's even worse than before. I'm not even gonna go into it. He just is. And I can't stand him. But, let's just get past that and get to the actual game. Okay. Graphics look great, actually. Graphics are good again. We have some nice environments. We have nice character models. Things look good. But this came out not really late in the PS2's life cycle, but it was getting there. So I expect it to look pretty good. The story takes precedence, and I actually kind of understand what's going on to a certain degree, which is good. So overall, the writing in general is a lot better than in the second game. So in terms of the presentation, we're back to the quality we were seeing in the first Devil May Cry. You can actually see the environments and enjoy looking at them, and you can actually understand the story to a certain extent. Now let's talk about the gameplay. Okay. It's a really weird mixed bag, because they made a lot of changes. Some I like, and others I fucking hate, because it did this weird thing where it went forward and backward at the same time. I don't even know how you do that, but let me explain why. Okay. The R1 button is suddenly a factor again, and I don't know fucking why. We didn't need it. It was unnecessary. It's not like holding it down lets you block or something, because it doesn't. So having to hold it down to aim is just silly to a certain extent. There's already auto-aiming. And if you're saying, well, you can hold it down to roll, well, we're back to the first game's thing of that never being reliable ever. And that's really frustrating. In addition, instead of the roll button, we have the dash button. And this dash, I fucking hate this thing, because again, it's not reliable. There's a weird delay on it, and whenever you use it, you can't do it again immediately. You have to wait, like, a second and a half, and then you'll do it again. And usually, that's enough time for an enemy to punch you right in the face or something. That's really, really frustrating. I feel like I'm fighting with these controls half the time. But in terms of the combos, you know, it's actually a lot easier to pull off moves in this game. They've refined things to where the game can actually read the combos you're putting in. This is something that hadn't happened up until now, while the combos existed in the previous two. The first game, it was just too difficult with a single button, and in the second game, you never fucking needed to. Here, the game actually registers your button timings, so you can actually pull off different moves. The problem is that all these moves are done with a single fucking attack button. Once again, there was only one melee attack button and one shoot button. What the fuck? For the love of all that is holy, what is the fucking deal? Okay, when this game came out, both Ninja Gaiden and the first God of War had been released. They had seen other competitors. You'd think that maybe they'd notice that, hey, both those games incorporate this concept of two different attack buttons to allow players to choose between light and heavy attacks and to do proper combo chains. And they decided, you know, let's not do that. This is Devil May Cry. We don't need two buttons. We just need one. Fuck! God, I don't understand this logic, this hatred of two attack buttons. Is that so hard to grasp? Is that really so fucking difficult? And before you say it's not a big deal, screw you. Because Devil May Cry 3 actually rewards people for doing combos. It wants to not be a button masher. But because you're only ever pressing one fucking button half the time, it just turns into that. I don't care if you can do different moves. You're hitting the same button. How is that not a button masher, I ask you? It's not as bad as in 2, because at least you have to dodge here, and again, much like the first game, at least I feel like I'm doing something. The bosses are pretty cool, and there's a nice enemy variety, but Jesus, mother, tap dancing, god damn Christ, why doesn't this series want to progress? Why doesn't it want to evolve and become something, you know, better? Improve upon itself. Maybe if this game had decided to take the old concept and, you know, make it better instead of doing this weird progression but regression thing, you know, maybe I would like it. But because it hasn't evolved any further, the problem with Devil May Cry overall is that there are other games that are similar to it that are just better than it. Ninja Gaiden and God of War, and nowadays Bayonetta. They're all better. They're the same kind of game, but they're more fun to play. You feel like you're in control, and you're not getting your ass kicked because you're fighting with the control system, which is exactly what keeps happening in all the games, except 2, because 2 just plays itself, basically. I keep having to go over that, sorry. Overall, you know, I don't really hate Devil May Cry. I mean, I do. But I'm willing to admit that I understand why some people like the games. If you like Dante for some goddamn reason, and you enjoy the story, they're not the worst things in the world to play. And I wouldn't say avoid them, you know, like the plague. I would say at least give them a try if you have the chance. But I just feel like the game developers never brought the series forward. They never really tried to make it something different. They just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it just drove me up to the frickin' wall.
Now I know everyone is gonna ask now. They want to know what I think of Devil May Cry 4, but more specifically, because it just came out, what do I think of the Devil May Cry reboot? Well, I can't really comment much about either of them, because I don't have them. I don't own them. I can't review them. I can't record them. I don't have the games. I haven't even played the reboot, though I did own 4 at one point. And, you know, if I must go into it a little bit, I do actually like Devil May Cry 4 a little bit. At least I did back when I played it. It probably hasn't aged well either. But, you know, I did actually like the game, probably because I wasn't playing as Dante, and Nero is a much more likable character, in my opinion. The reboot I was kind of interested in, but if it really hasn't changed much in terms of the gameplay, I'm probably going to fucking hate it. At the same time, I've heard almost nothing but bitching from the fan base, which is actually a good thing for me personally, because as far as I can tell, when it comes to Devil May Cry fans, specifically the fanboys, because there's a slight difference, what they like, I hate, and what they hate, I like. You know, it's sort of this polar opposite kind of relationship. So I might go into the new DMC and frickin' love it, or somehow. Not that I know, because I haven't played it, and I'm not really willing to. I don't feel like spending the money on a game that, for one, really, why are they rebooting Devil May Cry at all was a better question. Similarly to why I was wondering why they were rebooting Tomb Raider, but, you know, besides that, I never liked the series, and I barely have money to spend on games that I want to play, let alone games in series that I don't like, so why would I do that? You know, it's like, it's one of those things. I have better things to spend the money on. But yeah, so, feel free to send the hate mail to the usual address, because I'm sure by now I've gotten plenty of comments telling me what a horrible person I am, and how stupid I am to not fully grasp the brilliance of Devil May Cry. But you know what? Give no fucks. New policy. And you can kiss my ass. So until next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.